Okay, so then my next step is the resolve. And here is where now I've stood up the baseline, you remember from my learn, so I've got the standard of what that configuration should be. With the resolve, what I'm doing at this point is doing my audits. And so you're deciding what you want to audit. It can be a good example with respect to compliance is we have CIS compliance rules, HIPAA compliance rules. So basically other entities have come up with a set of configurations that needs to be in play for your devices. Those are available in the Blade Logic console where you can automatically now start to do those audits. So basically think of that configuration or that baseline can be based upon anything. With some of the other tools like the middleware application, then those baselines are against my applications. But again, with the resolving, I'm doing my audits to see what's out of compliance. Kind of think about this wheel here. So we've got our desired state, we're identifying any of the drift, and then we're doing our remediation. Now, some things don't require an act of Congress for me to bring them back into compliant or into my desired state, but some do. But understand with the tools, you can configure it such that it automatically, when it detects a non-compliance, it automatically brings it back into compliance. So you can opt for that, or you can opt for a little bit more process intensive where you're getting the necessary approvals.
Hey, Stacy, there was a question that just came in, and it says here, could you describe a little bit about some of the out-of-box reports that are available on the compliance side?
Sure. And so, like I mentioned, the CIS reports, the HIPAA, the DISA, the NIST, those are all regulatory compliance templates that are inside of Blade Logic where you can then begin to audit your systems, and then what you'll end up with is a report that's letting you know which devices are out of compliance. So that report is good, but we'll go the step further and then change or send those remediation packages back based upon what those non-compliances are. But basically, you'll get, I think out of the box, there may be 75 to 100 reports per solution, so server versus network versus application, that you can run in the environment and then provide those out to whoever needs to see the state of the data center.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then the last step here is the control. And so here's where I've done my learn. I can see what's out of compliance because of the resolve. The control is now where I'm doing either, you'll kind of see the two sides there. If I go down the left, it's a standard change. I automatically can bring that device back into compliance. So a good example there. I've stood up a Windows server. We have a compliance that says all the passwords need to be 8 characters. I need an uppercase, a lowercase. I need a number. I need a non-standard character. So Dick builds up the server, and he builds it to those standards because he's looked at the manual, and he's run through it step by step by step. I need to provision a server next week, and oops, I may have missed a step, so I didn't do the compliance for the passwords. So what we'll be able to see really quickly running an audit is that, hey, this server doesn't meet the compliance with respect to this password complexity. That was something that we can say is that the left-hand side, so we're going to automatically approve that, go ahead and bring that one configuration back into compliance. So it switches that, and now any passwords that are created are going to meet that new complexity. If we contrast that to the right, things that are non-standard changes may be that, yes, I have my baseline, but I need to apply these patches to that server because we had an issue with whatever that application is that's running on the server. And the only way to fix that is to do the patch. But I can't just patch that application because that, again, is my critical business service. It's not in a cluster, and I need to make sure that we have the back-out plan, etc. So that is going to go off to my CAB, my change approval board, so that we get the necessary processes in place in the event that that change does not go as expected. But even there, once we get the necessary approvals, then that information comes back to BladeLogic, and now we can send that group of patches down to the machine so that it meets the compliance, again, that's necessary for that application. And really what we're seeing on... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just interrupt you here and just ask a question. Now, what happens if you've done all, well, at least you've done all the work, you've prepared, you move forward, you think everything's going great, and you make these changes, and then you try to move into production, and you figure out something's not going right. Can you back out and get back to where you were?
Yes, and so that's another good feature of the BladeLogic tools is that you'll see when I do my deployment, because I'm not changing every aspect, it's really only these configurations or these objects that I'm sending down to the server, then when I need to roll back, and that's really what it's called inside of the console, I can roll back any of those changes that I just made to the device. And again, sometimes people use that for their back-out procedure in the event, like you mentioned, it doesn't go as planned. We need to go back to where we were before I implemented this change. I can just simply do that rollback.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the only other thing I was going to mention here, Dick, you'll see on the right, it talks about the BMC solution really combining the execution with the process. And here's where I was saying in some organizations or with some tools, this is very disjointed and they're not connected. And so there's human interaction between the two where you end up with issues, which again you'll see on this next slide. You'll see the top is kind of a delayed service. So I submit the request, and I may have to hit different people, and I see the different groups, but because those solutions are not, they're disjointed, then I end up with that delayed service. If we think about this bottom row with it being automated, the BladeLogic tools, all of those, regardless of it being a network device, an application, the middleware, the database, a server, those all reside under that data center automation. And so when we go to do any of our changes and we pass that off to the ITSM solution, when it comes back, it's still one continuous flow. And I'm really at that point automating my service that needs to be in play.
Yeah, it looks like the old adage, what's the shortest distance between 2 points?
Exactly.
That's a straight line. You couldn't figure it out. Okay, that's right. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So you may say, well, why would I want to automate the data center?
Okay. I was going to say that, but you beat me to it. Okay.
Okay. And so there's several icons that we're seeing here, but let me explain it like this. With our servers, we may have HP servers, we may have Dell servers. You did your poll there. I'm not sure what else is out there. IBM servers, and they all provide tools that's going to manage their box. But if you go outside of that and you now need to manage another server that's down there, it could be even something that you just piecemeal together. Then you would need some additional tools to help you do that. So really what you end up with as well, one other aspect there, I may have Windows servers, I may have Unix servers, I may have Linux servers. If we switch that over to the network devices, I may have Cisco, I may have the Foundry devices, Dell has network devices. But my point is, if I'm utilizing just the tools from the vendor, I end up with a host of tools, and I may have administrators who are proficient in one, but not all. And so what we're doing when it talks about this heterogeneous platform support is we're basically hardware and vendor operating system agnostic. We don't care what's down there. And so what I'm doing at that point is eliminating a bunch of tools and then just bringing one into play. That, again, is going to allow you to manage all your network devices, all your servers, all your database platforms that are down there in the data center, etc. Now, when I do that, I have one tool. I don't want, let's say, Dick, you're in charge of the Windows servers, and I'm in charge of the Linux servers. So I don't want you, because you're into the console, manipulating my Linux servers. So I can now start to delegate and say that you're only going to be able to touch the Windows servers. And if you have a larger organization and it's geographically based, and I can even segment that down further and limit you to the servers in your geography. So with that secure delegation, now I have everything under one fold, and I'm starting to slice out what you can do when you come into the console. And one other one here I'll hit is that shared best practice. So this really encompasses bringing some of that artificial intelligence that you alluded to before into the console. So now that I have more administrators that are able to do these tasks, because that makes my IT department more efficient. So that's some of the reasons why you would begin to automate your data center.
Yeah, in fact, one of our customers is a financial service provider here locally, and they've been using Blade Logic, and they were able to get it up and running in a relatively short amount of time. I was talking to the administrator there, and he was saying, well, part of my job is, after I teach people how to use it, is I go around and I basically tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you got to find a new job. Not within the company, because we don't need you anymore. We're automating everything. So,
exactly.
So it was amazing. Okay.
Okay. So now what I want to do is kind of go into each of the solutions. And so when we talk about server automation, what you'll notice, because I alluded to this before, hardware vendor agnostic as well, physical, virtual, it's in the cloud, those don't really matter to us. We're still going to be able to perform these functions. But with server automation, what I'm doing is, because I need to be able to see real time the state of that server. And what we do is any aspect of that server becomes a configuration object to me, or think of it as just an object. And you'll notice on the lower right-hand side there's about 7 things or actions that I can perform on an object. So I talked about doing that baselining and then my audit. And once I've done that, now what I can do is create these remediation packages. And that's done automatically by the tool. So no human interaction needed to build that package. Some solutions will provide you the report, and so you can see what's out of spec. So now I have to somehow build this, and it could be that I'm writing a script to build that. I'm manually I've got 10 servers out there that are out of spec, so now I have to hit each 10 servers and change the various aspects. But with the Blade Logic, I can see it. Maybe this server has these 2 objects that are out of compliance, and the server over here has 10. It's building separate packages for each of those servers that is then available for deploy. And then again, depending upon what type of change that is, it may be something that you decide can happen automatically, or you may need to run it through your change process. But the good part is the package is there ready for deployment.